Welcome back for your report of findings. I love these appointments because we get to report on what we found, but then also deliver a message of hope and healing. And you'll have the opportunity to continue with a care recommendation and take charge of your health in a way that we can partner to accomplish the goals that you have mentioned. So, recap of the cycle of death. 3 types of stress: emotional, chemical, and physical stress are affecting us all from womb to tomb. And throughout life, these stresses overwhelm our brain and nervous system, which results in this condition called nerve interference or subluxation. Your brain controls your whole body so that every single part of your body can become diseased or imbalanced. And when that happens, you or your family results with decreased stress response, health, and ultimately quality of life. If that's the case, a lot of times there is a medical diagnosis, sometimes chemical stress through the form of medication, or emotional stress through the labels. That gets fed back into the cycle, and we just continue to have decreased stress response, health, and quality of life. So what we want to do is we want to address the nerve interference that we found in your system so that you can have improved stress response, health, and quality of life. Here's a recap of the autonomic nervous system, just showing how the brain does control every single part of the body, and it does that through the brain and spinal cord. And that's why it's so important to maintain the posture and alignment and integrity of that neurospinal system. This neurofuse box, this is a handout that you'll have in your folder, and it shows how the different parts of the brain, what functions they have, and when those functions are disrupted by nerve interference, what are the possible side effects. So take a look at that. It's really cool to see how intricately wired, but this is not an exhaustive list by any means. Here's a chart showing some common interventions that maybe you've already tried or you are currently trying. And across the top here are different measures of a stress response. So when we look at how each of these interventions have been researched and what the research shows as far as adaptability findings, we're showing this chart to say what's the best bang for the buck. A lot of things have benefit. Chiropractic clearly has the most research showing consistent positive adaptability findings or positive influences on the stress response when we look at chiropractic compared to exercise or massage, for example. So it's not a either or, it's actually a both and. The chiropractic care and removing nerve interference makes everything else that you're doing benefit you more and even more worth your time and money. Chiropractic for kids. Here's a handout that we put in just to remind everybody that we are a family practice and it is so much easier to keep kids healthy than to fix broken adults. Unfortunately, a lot of times we wait until it's too late and we've already been in a state of suffering and disease for some time. But we want you to know that we recommend the whole family gets checked. And so if you have not scheduled the rest of the family for their discovery exam, please do that today. We have promotions for the discovery exam as well as the family packages, and it will save you time and money to do that right away as a family. So please take us up on that recommendation. Feeling versus function, this is my favorite poster in the whole office, and this is going to guide our discussion of the testing that we did. So first off, this yellow section, about 45% of all your nerve pathways, it says controls the blood vessels, organs, and glands. We did a rolling thermal test to test this part of your nervous system. That's the top scan up here. We're comparing normal to abnormal. Abnormal is when we have mild, moderate, or severe imbalance in that temperature. We look at it as chronic or acute inflammation stuck in the spinal cord. It's telling us that the brain is not adequately communicating with the organs and that part of your body. This is what the scan should look like. It should be white and it should be alternating back and forth. The second scan that we did was for the motor nerves. Those are the ones that control your muscles, and that accounts for about another 45% of all of your nerve pathways. So the second scan here, we're looking at an abnormal scan compared to a normal scan. Abnormal, looking at green, blue, and red, would be mild, moderate, and severe, or 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations out of normal for the electrical activity or muscle spasm in these muscles. Extra muscle spasm basically is a waste of energy, and it can also be pulling the spine out of alignment or causing the spine to wear out prematurely. Here's a normal scan. This is what we want to see with white bars and this type of distribution. And the third scan, we're looking at our sensory nerves here. Now this is a very small portion of your overall central nervous system. Pain is only about 3%. All of this would be 10%. So the sensory nerves, that has a lot to do with your stress response, posture, and temperature. So in looking at your stress response, for one, we did the HRV. This is the heart rate variability. The white dot would be the result, and we want the white dot to be in the green box. If the white dot is in the green box, that tells us that the practice member is responding to stress in a really healthy way. If they're out of it, it tells us they're not, and it tells us why. Sympathetic to the left of the black vertical line, that is a stress response that your body goes into, like a gas pedal ramp up response. Parasympathetic is like a brake pedal calming down response. We should be balanced enough to be under the green box, but then also high enough to show that we've got enough battery charge or gas in the tank. So that's a good way of looking at that, where you're at with your stress response currently when we look at your results. Finally here, the x-ray from the front, this is the AP view. We want to see this with as best alignment as possible, having the top bone in your spine right over your hips, head over pelvis. There's no advantage to having curves in the spine. Too much of that would be a scoliosis or a subluxation. And then from the side here, there are 3 curves in the spine. There should be this banana-shaped curve up in the neck, a very slight curve in the mid-back, we don't want a hunchback, and then another banana-shaped curve in the low back. We'll have these marked on your x-rays, and we'll just show you what we found for that. So to tie this all together and to recap, once again, we don't call this the cycle of death to instill fear or anxiety. The truth is, none of us are going to live in these bodies forever. And I remember when I was stressed, depressed, and anxious at the thought of death because I wasn't sure what would happen next. And maybe you can relate to that. But now I've got peace and excitement thinking about life after death. And as much as I love discussing these evidence-based approaches for emotional and physical health, I love discussing the evidence-based hope we can all have in eternal life even more, because it's the most important topic that can be discussed. So if you're open to it, love to hear your thoughts on spiritual health or share the reasons I have hope for eternal life. But if you just want to cover your report of findings today, that's fine too. I just want you to know that we are open to discussing spiritual health at any time in our office. We'll be with you shortly.